Okay, so House of the Dragon sets up some major things for the prince who was promised prophecy, which would end up coming to fruition in Game of Thrones. Episode 7 has a major moment in it in which Alicent cuts Rhaenyra's hand, and this could all tie everything together to bring things full circle with Game of Thrones. As we've been saying every week, it was thought that Jon Snow would be the one to fulfill the prophecy, but in the end it turned out to be Arya. However, there is a way it can all still come together and make sense without Jon Snow actually having to carry it out. There's a number of ways that connected, and if you had issues with the way the prophecy played out in the long night, then hopefully this at least saves some of Season 8 for you. Hopefully. Now, as you can guess, throughout this video we're going to be breaking it all down, and if you enjoy it, we'd massively appreciate the thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe for videos on the show every week, and a big breakdown for the episodes right after they release. Without the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the video. Now firstly, I have to give a huge shout out to our editor Matt, who first noticed this time when we were putting our episode 7 video together. Since then, we've been going over everything to talk about how the blood being on the blade stops things from contradicting. For the first part of the video, I want to talk about what the prophecy is, so you can kind of get a brief understanding of that before we delve into how the blade connects to it. Now in case you don't know, the prince who was promised prophecy is what the Lord of Light religion is based around, and it was brought to the forefront by Aegon the Conqueror. He had a dream that showed a great force coming from the north, and the only way to stop this was through his bloodline being in charge. Though the word prince is often interpreted as being about a man, it is important to bear in mind that the term comes from High Valyrian. In this language, the word prince is actually gender neutral, and therefore there's been a number of candidates that could fit the role. Many thought that it was Stannis Baratheon, but this then changed to Jon Snow, Dany, and even Arya. The prophecy states that the figure will be born amidst salt and smoke, and using a sword named Lightbringer, they'll combat the impending darkness. The prince is also supposed to be a reincarnation of Azor Ahai, a legendary warrior that defeated darkness during the Long Night thousands of years ago. Aegon had a dream that this figure would return one day, and he believed that it would come from his bloodline. He said that this would be the Song of Ice and Fire, and this phrase was carved into the Valyrian dagger. Similar to the hidden message on the One Ring, this could only be displayed with fire, and it relayed all of Aegon's message. The Song of Ice and Fire is of course the name of the book series Game of Thrones was adapted into, and it's something that Viserys and Sam also reference. The prophecy has been secretly passed from king to king and king to queen to make sure that those who inherit the throne will know to pass on the message. Due to what happens in the books, it's unlikely that Rhaenyra will ever pass this on to someone who sits on the throne, but she could possibly relate to her children, and so on and so forth. However, as we never hear of it in Game of Thrones, I'm guessing that it got lost to time, though it's also possible that D&D had no idea what they were doing, so they never set it up. Now a lot of this could be the show just trying to fix the ending of Game of Thrones, but I can't say that I'll be mad if they manage to pull this off. Now for the next part of the video, I want to talk about the timeline of the dagger, and where it eventually ends up. This is a rough timeline of it and where it travels through the story in Game of Thrones, so that we can talk about more of our theories on where it's going to end up in the end. Should it really call this video prophecy time? But we'll avoid all that because I know you guys hate it. Now in Game of Thrones, the dagger ends up being carried by the assassin who attempts to kill Bran in Winterfell after his fall from the tower. Thus, it definitely falls out of Targaryen hands, and we're likely going to see what happens to it as we get further into House of the Dragon. Now after this attack fails, the dagger is then shown as several characters who all conclude that it has to belong to someone wealthy due to it being made out of Valyrian steel. After taking it with her to King's Landing, Catelyn discovers that it belonged to Littlefinger, who apparently lost it in a bet to Tyrion. He denies this, says it's all fabricated, and afterwards Ned keeps it with him. Littlefinger then ends up taking it after he betrays Ned, and he keeps it with him all the way up to Season 7. In the end, he gives it to Bran, who then passes it on to Arya because he can't fight. In a cruel twist of fate, Arya ends up using it on Littlefinger when he gets executed for committing treason. They even theorize that Littlefinger actually owned it all along because of Tyrion's denial. This would mean that he was the one who sent the assassin to Bran, and he may have gave it to him as a way to try and broker peace. From this point onwards, Arya keeps the dagger herself, and she ends up carrying it across the sea at the end of Season 8. So it's still out there, which we'll talk more about later on in the video. Now the saying carved into it also has a strong connection to Aegon's blood, which I think is what the hand slice is playing upon. When this happens, we get a strong focus on it dripping from Rhaenyra's hand, and this is symbolic for a number of reasons. Not only is it Alicent drawing first blood between the pair, but the blood itself is now also on the blade. Now Jon Snow can trace his lineage all the way back to Rhaenyra, making him tied directly to the prince who was promised. The blade now carries the bloodline on it too, so no matter what happens, it can help to defeat the Night King without necessarily having to be in his hand. The prophecy also doesn't specifically state that a Targaryen needs to be on the throne either, and therefore it's still possible that it becomes complete in Game of Thrones. Now, another interesting aspect tying into the bloodline is that Daenerys is also a descendant of Aegon. Therefore, the prince who was promised prophecy could be talking about multiple people, and this is why many are confused over whether it's Dany or Jon. Dany was born amongst sea and salt, and therefore she might be fulfilling part of it. On the other side of it, Jon could end up fulfilling the Lightbringer part, and thus the term prince being interchangeable gender-wise could also mean that it's still technically true. So in order for it to all come together, we have the prophecy that states either a male or female from Aegon's bloodline will come forth and destroy the darkness that will come from the north. This evil will be defeated using the blade, which Arya ends up doing. Who knows, she might even be revealed as being a Targaryen at some point, because their family tree is probably dying for a couple of extra branches that aren't connected to it. I doubt it, but that's something to bear in mind as we start heading towards the next part of the video. Now, it is also possible that this will be covered more in the upcoming Jon Snow series that's rumoured to be in development. Though Kit Harington has said that he knows nothing about it, George R.R. Martin has openly talked about it at several points, and it will likely be something that fills the gap between the 2 years it takes to make House of the Dragon. I can see it getting to the point where they look for a big bad in that series, and they may even end up pulling the Night King back into it once more. This could lead to Jon facing off against him one final time, and he may then stab the villain with the blade, which would lead to it all being fulfilled. I don't know though, guy should be dead, but yeah, this spin-off series will be interesting to see, as we don't really have anything in the books that hints towards where things could be going. With it being a spin-off series, I'm guessing that it will have cameos in it too, which will probably feature some returning characters. This could end up leading into the return of Arya, who may end up giving the dagger back to Jon, as she was the one last seen with it. If this is the case, then she could also be pulled into fighting the Night King once more, seeing as she was the person who defeated him in the first place. There's lots of different ways to take it, and I'm sure we'll unearth more and more as we get into the future episodes and seasons of House of the Dragon. Either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the theories, how it connects to Rhaenyra being cut, and generally what you think will happen next for it to pass from House of Dragon into Game of Thrones. Comment below and let me know, and just to let you know, we're running a competition right now and giving away 3 copies of Thor Love and Thunder on the 15th of October. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the theories. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the episode 8 trailer, which will be linked on screen right now. We've gone over the full thing from top to bottom, so definitely head over there right after this. With that out of the way, thanks for sitting through the video, I've been Paul, let's see you in the next one. Take care, peace.